again to welcome you.
Good to see you again.
So I just looked up, we had met 2 years ago under similar circumstances at a different conference.
Yes.
And what I forgot to ask you then, and I should ask you now, is your story about the gold and Nicaragua.
So when I came out of college, I worked for the Hunt family out of Dallas, Texas. And one of the things they had me do is they bought a gold mine down in Nicaragua. And I spent a year helping run it. And it was very nerve-wracking because you would get a shipment of $250,000 worth of gold. I would have to sleep with it under my bed, drive it out to the airport, fly it to Miami, and hand it off to the Brinks guys every 2 weeks. And so I was having panic attacks and all sorts of things. It was probably one of the most stressful jobs I've ever had.
I don't know if it necessarily helped you become a better entrepreneur when you started the next venture, which then you acquired Match.com. But some traits of risky entrepreneurship?
Well, I mean, what it did was it set my risk tolerance very high. I mean, so from that point forward, I would look at everything and go, well, I'm probably not going to get killed doing this. And so starting an internet company, while it was risky in terms of would it work or not, it definitely wasn't risky in terms of I was going to lose my life or get caught with a bunch of money taken from me and beaten.
Match.com was a much bigger company.
Yes.
A much bigger name. So there's a lesson to learn for entrepreneurs to have the risk appetite and go and acquire a much bigger company than yours. And how does that play into the game?
Well, so Match had raised $10 million a year ahead of us in San Francisco. And we started off and we raised a total of $90,000, but we focused very tightly on the business model and how to get distribution. And so by the time it was over, Match had actually ran out of capital. The VC had fired the founder, sold it off, and we ended up in the acquisition taking over what was left of their brand name and putting it in our company, which had 70-something employees at the time and was growing 30% a month.
So fast forward to now, you're a very known investor in Silicon Valley. What companies do you look for?
Well, so GrowthX focuses very hard on the sales problem. And so we have an internal sales team, and so we look for companies that have good product, some early customers, but the founder has never built a sales team before. And so we can come in, do it with them, train them, then hire and replace ourselves as part of our investment thesis.
Okay. And what stage is that?
Generally, it's after family and friends, so they built a product, they just haven't scaled it enough to get a Series A.
Okay. So what do you think, why this particular proposition?
Most startups fail because they never figure out how to sell to their customers. And so we feel like that's something we can specialize in that adds a lot of value, and that is a big cause for most startups to fail, is they just can't figure it out.
It's one of the most difficult pain points to come over. And almost 90% plus, if I may say, entrepreneurs do not have the skill set. And this is where they struggle a lot. So some anecdotes, if you can share with us.
Well, a lot of it is just learning how to talk to customers in their language and not your language. And so a lot of our training, like for instance, we've got a female entrepreneur out of Dallas, and she's selling a software that you can walk into a store, customize furniture, and it gets built one-off for you. Well, she's a lot further ahead of the marketplace than what retailers currently want, but there's a sub part of what she's doing that customers will buy now. And so after working with her, listening to her customers, we're helping her reorient her product so that she can sell a lot more of it now versus 5 years in the future when they are ready for the full solution.
Right. When you look at some of the execution that happened between the time you started Invest to now, who are these successful entrepreneurs, quote unquote, in your mind?
Well, the number one quality that determines whether you'll succeed or not is your level of grit. And it's the people that don't give up. I mean, my brother and sister started a company, took them 14 years. Now they sold it successfully 2 years ago, but any rational person would have given up. Yeah. And so a lot of times you have a great idea and you're early, and that's where the opportunity is. But because you're early, you have to last long enough to be there. I mean, the first 18 months of doing online dating, I mean, I would tell people I'm doing online dating in Dallas, Texas, they would physically back up from me. It sounded like such a shocking idea. And so, but we were able to stay on the field long enough that the culture caught up to what we were doing, and then it took off.
Great insight, as always. Thank you, Will.
Thank you. Awesome.